Hello friends, this is Chandrakant from Akulmac Technologies and welcome to Top Brass. First of all, today is 15th of August and the whole of India and the Indians spread across the globe are celebrating 74th Independence Day. So let me first start by giving my best wishes to fellow Indians and the NRIs who are spread across in multiple countries. A very happy Independence Day. And most of us would have heard the Prime Minister speech today from the Lal Killa, and he mentioned many things. And one of the subject that he mentioned was Make in India. It's a very big subject, and he also talked about how the India is, trying to get the Indian manufacturers to manufacture some of the equipment used by the army. So I don't want to go in a lot of depth in this subject, although I have a lot of material, but I want to focus on something else today. Uh, the whole objective behind getting Make in India in the defense services is simply because India being the third largest army in the world. So if you look at the global powers, there are top five, and India being the third. But if you look at other superpower, like if you look at the US, UK, China, India, France, etc., all these countries except the Indians manufacture whatever they need for their defense. And India is the only country which is the third largest superpower in terms of arms and armaments, is dependent on imports. So even though we have a huge army, but our imports are also huge. And that is why the government of India has realized this. I'm surprised that this was not realized earlier, but they are saying that 101 items will not be imported anymore. So there is an embargo on these items, I think you can go on the net and see what are these items. These are starting from small things to even high-tech stuff. So the army has to find their own uh, suppliers, manufacturers within India. The manufacturers are free to have their technology transfer from anywhere across the world or indigenously develop, but army cannot procure anything which is not made in India when it comes to these 101 items. So my topic of discussion today is I'm taking the example of HAL, because HAL being one of the most successful defense manufacturer and very old one. There is a long history around it. Uh, and how you know, the entrepreneurship innovation was systematically removed from the from Indian population. So I will take this example of HAL, how it began, and many of you will not even know what is the history of HAL and how it came up. And today HAL is one of the biggest aircraft manufacturer for and the spare parts and also the assembler of all the aircrafts that Indian Defense Services use, whether Air Force or the aircraft used by Army and Navy and so on. So, to start with my discussion, I would like to take a name of a gentleman called Walchand Hirachand. Now, you would think, who is this guy? Because I did not know about this until and unless I actually started digging into the net and trying to do research on HAL. You will be surprised, viewers, that this gentleman called Waljal Hirachand is a Gujarati Jain person, born in 1800 century, and so much enterprising. He actually inherited sugar factory from his father, but he was not interested in the sugar business and also the contract railway contract business, and he was enterprising. So he is the person who established. He got inspired by the American aircraft industry at that point in time, and he approached the Maharaja of Mysore, Badiyar, and they actually formed a company called Hindustan Aircraft Limited way back in 1939. This company was established, and the Maharaja actually gave him the land, and there was a shareholding. There were a bunch of other guys, and this company was started, and they manufactured some of these aircraft which were used for training initially, and so on and so forth. But remember, in 1939 the world war broke, the second world war, and British were the ruler of India at that point in time, and this company was then nationalized in 1942 on a pretext or a pretense by the British ruling class that during the war, and when Japanese are having so much influence in the Asia Pacific region, they cannot have a private enterprise producing aircraft in the territory which is run by them. So that was the excuse given for nationalizing the Hindustan Aircraft Limited. It was still called Hindustan Aircraft Limited at that point in time. And during the acquisition of this company, Walchand Hirachand was made to let go his shares, and he was paid appropriately. And there were other shareholders, other prominent business shareholders who were given compensation, and they were asked to leave their share so that the government of UK can own this factory, which was producing aircrafts. And however, the Maharaja of Mysore refused to let go his shares, and he maintained his holding in the company. But he had to let go his controlling rights in the board of directors. So all of this happened in 1942. So remember, viewers, the company was established in 1939 by a gentleman called Walchand Hirachand. None of us know about this. And in partnership with Maharaja of Mysore, which is Vadiyar. None of us knows about it. Anyway, let's move ahead. So British were very busy fighting the battle with Germany, and Americans anyway were fighting war with Japan. So this factory, which is called Hindustan Aircraft Limited in Bangalore, was handed over to Americans. And Americans were using this factory to produce a lot of the spare parts and aircraft which were used during Second World War by Americans. And it became such a big operation. It was the biggest aircraft company in the entire Asia Pacific, including Australia. So it became such a big factory. In any case, Americans moved out, and World War ended. India got independence, and you know we continued as a nationalized company, and it was still called Hindustan Aircraft Limited, and it was merged with the Air Force establishment, which was in Kanpur. And after that, in 1961, the name was changed to Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. Now, my question is, how many of us know that this company was a private enterprise? It was an innovation done by an individual who was a businessman, smart businessman, and he came up with an idea of establishing the aircraft factory in India to manufacture aircrafts. It's not the only achievement of this gentleman called Walchand Hirachand. I will take this name several times because many of us don't know this gentleman at all, and we don't even hear about this incident. Now, he was also the founding member of the Conference of Indian Insurance Companies. It was a big deal, he was one of the founding members as a well-known businessman of that time, and in 1937 he was part of the Indian insurance companies. Second, so let me move on to the second one. The second thing that he established around the same time was a shipyard. Now many of you will think, oh, what shipyard he would have built. It is the largest shipyard after Mumbai, and that is in Visakhapatnam. So he actually was a person who built the shipyard. He wanted to get into shipping business, and he also built the ship. He delivered his first product in 1948. And in those days, the shipyard of Visakhapatnam was known as Scindia Ship Company, shipyard. Uh, and when India got independence, our Prime Minister, Mr. Nehru, was not too happy that such an important asset is owned by a private entity. So he actually was instrumental in nationalizing the shipyard, which is based in Visakhapatnam, and gradually the shipyard was taken over by the Indian government this time, and this was named as Hindustan Shipyard Company, Shipyard Limited. Finally, the entire acquisition ended in 1961. But this is not the only contribution of Mr. Walchand Hirachand. He also brought the first car factory in India. And you know, I think I will only give guesses. In 1940, during the British era, he established the first car company which was known as Premier Parbani. And this factory was producing cars for Indian consumers. So you see, uh, you know, a person who is so enterprising, a person who's thinking about insurance, who's thinking about sugar, who's running enterprises in railway construction, who's enterprising enough to build an aircraft factory, also a shipyard, because in those days India needed ships, and how would you get ships? You have to manufacture your own. So a person who was so much enterprising, and he also brought the first car factory to India. And how many of us know about him? I don't think there is a chapter in any of the school books about Mr. Walchand Hirachand. Nobody knows his contribution. And we have systematically taken over these enterprises and nationalized them, made public property. And what happens? We are still doing an assembling job. you know so I will talk about the all these things in some other video, but I thought I will just bring this to you, that there was a gentleman way back before India got independence, Mr. Walchand Hirachand, who established Hindustan Aircraft Limited, which was later known as Hindustan Aeronautical Limited. He set up the shipyard, which is at Visakhapatnam. He also brought the first car factory in India. So with this, I will like your opinion. Dear friends, do let me know if you have heard about this gentleman called Walchand Hirachand before. If not, I would like to hear from you and what is your opinion about this subject. I will catch up with you tomorrow again on something else. Until then, bye bye.